Dear students, so in the previous classes, we have studied about the physical properties of soil, chemical properties of soil, and today let us we know about the biological properties of soil. Biological properties represent the direct and indirect influence of the living organisms habit habitating a particular soil. Soil biological properties reflect how well suited a soil is to support life. Most of the properties require specialized and high powered equipment for observations or measurements. They include active and total carbon content, organic matter, enzymes, earthworms, nematodes, respiration, fungi and bacteria, microorganisms, and nitrogen fixation. Biological activity in soil are widely recognized as playing a vital part in a nutrient cycling and availability to plants and in developing and maintaining soil structure and contributing to soil health. Biological factors include the presence of living organisms that greatly affect soil formation. Soil organisms break down organic matter and while doing so make nutrients available for uptake by plants. The nutrients stored in the bodies of soil organisms prevent nutrient loss by leaching. Microbes also maintain soil structure while earthworms are important in bioturbation in the soil. Organic matter in the soil improves soil structure and increasing the nutrient and water holding capacity of the soil. Organic matter also provides a food supply for soil. Soil with low organic matter can have a poor structure, hold little water, and erode or leach nutrients easily. Soils with high organic matter levels have a good structure, good water holding capacity, and reduced erosion and nutrient leaching. Coming to the another one known as humus. So let us we know what is humus and its role. Humus is brownish or black color, a natural fertilizer which absorbs heat, and humus improves plant growth and it has high water holding ability. It is good at storing nutrients and useful for microorganisms. It binds tiny soil particles and improves soil structure. Living plants contribute to soil formation in two basic ways. One as biomass, another as nutrient recycling. Biomass is the organic matter which is present above the soil as stems and leaves and below the soil as roots. It provides the raw materials for organic matter which on decomposition gives humus and further carbon dioxide and water. Nutrient recycling involves the cycling of nutrient from the soil in dead plant tissues. In this process, nutrients are prevented from escaping through the leaching action. Animals living in the soil play an important role in biological processes of soil. Example, earthworm. Earthworm rework the soil not only by the borrowing but also by passing the soil through their intestinal tracts. As earthworms move through soil and decaying organic matter, they ingest and aerate, depositing castings. These are rich in nutrients and beneficial soil organisms. These microbes play a major role in determining soil fertility. Earthworms have the ability to eat and mix large amount of soil and organic matter and deposit in the form of casts. They also enhance the decomposition of organic matter, increase soil aggregate stability, improve porosity and aeration, and increase microbial activity. Earthworms also take nutrients down through the soil profile, bringing them into closer contact with plant roots. Earthworms are the major components of fauna, soil fauna communities in most ecosystems and comprise a large proportion of microfauna biomass. Carbon to nitrogen ratio in the soil. Soil microorganisms have a carbon to nitrogen ratio nearly 8:1. They must acquire enough carbon and nitrogen from the environment in which they live to maintain the ratio of carbon and nitrogen in their bodies. These organisms need a diet with carbon to nitrogen ratio nearly 24:1, with 16 parts of carbon used for energy and 8 parts for maintenance. It is this ratio, that is carbon is to nitrogen ratio, that is 24:1, that rules the soil. Carbon to nitrogen ratio greater than 24:1 will result in a temporary nitrogen deficit, that is called immobilization, and those with carbon to nitrogen ratio less than 24:1 will result in a temporary nitrogen surplus, that is called mineralization. These terms are very important. The carbon to nitrogen ratio is important due to the fact that it has a direct impact on residue decomposition and also nitrogen cycling in the soil. Optimum carbon to nitrogen ratio is 24:1. Carbon to nitrogen ratio depends on the following factors, that is, higher rainfall increases the carbon to nitrogen ratio, higher temperature decreases the carbon to nitrogen ratio, higher acidity increases the carbon to nitrogen ratio, addition of nitrogen fertilizer does not affect carbon to nitrogen ratio. Humus has many nutrients that improve the health of the soil. Nitrogen being the most important, the ratio of carbon to nitrogen of humus is 10:1. The composition of humus is 60% carbon, 6% nitrogen, and smaller amounts of sulfur and phosphorus. Nitrogen transformation in the soil. Let us we know how this nitrogen transformation takes place. The major transformations of nitrogen are nitrogen fixation, nitrification, denitrification, anamox, and ammonification. Human activities such as making fertilizers and burning fossil fuels have significantly altered the amount of fixed nitrogen in the earth ecosystem. The order of nitrogen transformation includes nitrogen fixation, nitrogen assimilation, ammonification, nitrification, and denitrification. The three ways of nitrogen can get out of the soil are leaching, denitrification, and volatilization. Coming to the next, that is known as sulfur transformation. Sulfur transformations in soil are considered to result primarily from the activity of microorganisms. It is classified as mineralization, that is, breakdown of organic containing sulfur compounds to form mineral sulfate, and immobilization, the conversion of mineral sulfate to organic sulfur compounds. The sulfur cycle describes the movement of sulfur through geosphere and biosphere. Sulfur is released from the rocks through weathering and then assimilated by microbes and plants. It is then passed up the food chain and assimilated by plants and animals and released when they decompose. It is available in plant as sulfate or organic sulfur or elemental sulfur. Plants can absorb sulfur only through their root system in the sulfate form. The amino acid, that is cysteine, plays an important role in assimilation of sulfur. Sulfur cycle is made up of 4 steps, that is mineralization, oxidation, reduction, and incorporation. Sulfur is one of the main constituent of many proteins, vitamins, and hormones. Sulfur in the form of sulfate assimilation takes place in levels in chloroplast, in leaves in chloroplast. To some extent, it also occurs in roots in in proplastids. In proteins, it is assimilated as a sulfite. The hormone insulin and anticoagulant heparin contains sulfur in the form of chondroitin sulfate. In the amino acid cysteine, it is in the form of tripeptide glutathione. This is a slide that shows the various biological properties of the soil, that is soil respiration, potential mineralizable nitrogen, microbial biomass, soil enzymes, earthworms, crop condition root growth, weed pathogen, and soil insect pressure. Now, in the soil organic matter, it consists of decomposing plant and animal residues. It also includes substances of organic origin, either living or dead. This slide shows about the organic fertilizers, how they work, and synthetic fertilizer, how they work. So when we introduce the organic fertilizer, The organic fertilizer directly it will be taken as a plant nutrient in one way. In another way, this organic matter it turns into the soil nutrient, and this soil nutrient through the microorganisms they develop, and these microorganisms they create the plant nutrients, and these plant nutrients are taken by the plant for their growth. Another, the synthetic fertilizers, these are directly taken by the plant. So the second slide shows about the carbon content in the soil. Coming to the importance of soil organic matter. The soil organic matter plays an important role in deciding or maintaining soil physical conditions. It also influences soil chemical properties, especially cation exchange capacity. Organic matter supply the energy sources for soil microorganisms. Soil development is another aspect which is influenced by the soil organic matter. The factors affecting soil organic matter includes climate, natural vegetation, texture, drainage, cropping and tillage, crop rotations, residues and plant nutrients. Coming to the importance of soil organisms. Macro and microorganisms and living plant roots that residue in the topsoil play an important role in soil's health and are an integral part of soil's food web. Tilling and use of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides can severely disrupt the food web in the topsoil and deplete its nutrients. Many organisms are found in the soil, including fungi, bacteria, protozoans, rodents, and earthworms. So this is a slide that shows the content of the biological content of the soil. Earthworm, nearly 7,000 species of earthworms we come across in the soil. These earthworms eat their path through soil, burrows and casts, and that is the plant roots can follow burrows, casts high in organic matter, nutrients and bacteria. They prefer moist, cool environment with pH 5.5 to 8.5. These are the various biological species that are present in the soil. We have also studied about the carbon to nitrogen ratio in the soil. Soil organisms need carbon for building essential organic compounds and to obtain energy. They need nitrogen to synthesize nitrogen containing cellular components such as amino acids, enzymes and DNA. Microbes need 1 gram of nitrogen for every 24 gram of carbon in their food. Hence we write carbon to nitrogen ratio as 1:24. Higher than 25:1, not enough nitrogen. So the microbes take from plant supply and decay delayed because microbes can't survive at this stage. Carbon nitrogen ratio of various organic materials. If you take the soil microbes, it contains carbon to nitrogen ratio as 4:1 to 9:1. Soil organic matter contains 10:1 to 12:1. Solid cattle manure It contains 20:1 to 40:1. Horse manure contains 27:1, the carbon to nitrogen ratio. Solid poultry manure contains 5:1 and also 10:1. Liquid hog manure contains less than 8:1. Liquid dairy products, they contain 15:1. Legume residues 20:1 to 30:1. Corn stalks 80:1. Wheat straw 80:1. Sawdust 500:1. Contains lot of carbon content in the soil, but the content of nitrogen is very less. Pulp and paper biosolids include 25:1. That is nitrogen added during the process, here to 200:1, where which contains little or no nitrogen added. There are various other products where the soil and the carbon and nitrogen content are. If you take a sandy loam, contains 7:1. The humus contains 10:1 of carbon and nitrogen. The grass clipping 19:1. Sandy loam 25:1. Oak leaves 26:1. Leaves of various 35:1 to 85:1. Peat moss contains 58:1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. And if you go to the pine needles, alder sawdust, the Douglas fir bark sawdust, they contain very large carbon content, and nitrogen is so small, these are of not that much useful as manures. Then we have also studied about the mineralization and immobilization. The opposite of mineralization is immobilization. The two occur simultaneously in the soil. If mineralization occurs, then immobilization is less. Whether the net effect is an increase or a decrease in a mineral nitrogen available depends on carbon to nitrogen ratio. For microorganisms, this occurs mostly when the carbon to nitrogen ratio of soil organic matter is at least 30:1. With such ratios, mineralization virtually does not occur. Net nitrogen mineralization is equal to gross nitrogen mineralization minus microbial immobilization of inorganic nitrogen. So below the diagram shows about the immobilization and mineralization. Soil nutrients generally occur in two forms: inorganic compounds dissolved in water or attached to minerals, and organic matter compounds, part of living organisms and dead organic matter. Bacteria, fungi, nematodes, protozoa and arthropods are always transforming nutrients between these two forms. When they consume inorganic compounds to construct cells, enzymes and other organic compounds needed to grow, they are said to be immobilizing nutrients. When organisms excrete inorganic waste compounds, they are said to be mineralizing nutrients. So organisms consume other organisms and excrete inorganic waste. Now the diagram clearly shows the organisms, they turn into the ammonium ion and nitrate ion, which are useful. This is called the mineralization. So from these minerals we get the organic product that we call, that is the living organisms, that we call immobilization. So this is one more cycle that's called the nitrogen cycle. Here also it shows. So how the nitrogen cycle takes place. So in the atmosphere we have the nitrogen gases like nitrogen, nitric oxide, nitrous oxide, and so on. These gases on nitrogen fixation, they turn into the organic nitrogen. And this organic nitrogen further turns into the ammonium ions by a process called mineralization, or it is also called ammonification. Organic matter turns into the ammonium ion. This ammonium ion turns into the nitrate ion, and this process is called nitrification. These nitrate ions are taken by the plants and they grow. And after growing, they give the organic matter to the soil. So the nitrate ion turning into the organic matter, that is organic nitrogen, is called immobilization. And the same nitrate ions, they on volatilization, they once again gave to the atmosphere nitrogen, nitric oxide, and nitrous oxide. This process is called denitrification. The students, you go through this cycle properly and try to explain about what is nitrogen fixation, what is mineralization, what is immobilization, and what is nitrification and denitrification. Even ammonium ion can also turn into the organic nitrogen. This process is also called immobilization. That means not only the nitrate should turn into the organic matter, even ammonium ion can also turn into the organic matter. The same process here once again in another way it is explained. So the atmosphere nitrogen, so they turn into the ammonium ions, and the nitrogen fixation is done. The nitrate ions are formed. So the conversion of nitrate ion into the organic nitrogen is immobilization, and the same organic nitrogen into the nitrate form or ammonium form is called mineralization. The conversion of ammonium ion into the what you can say the nitrate is also the nitrogen fixation, and then the converting the nitrate ions into the nitrogen gas once again is denitrification. So these are the immobilization takes place in aerobic conditions and mineralization takes place in anaerobic conditions. Yes, so this is a slide, it shows about the organic sulfur. So how the sulfur cycle. So sulfur exists in nature. So how the sulfur will enter, like sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide. So through the gases they come into the what you can say the soil, and they turn into the sulfates. And the organic decompositions also from the plants, they give into the sulfates in water. So this is a sulfate cycle. So in this sulfate cycle, so you have the organic sulfides, the sulfur also present in the system, and also the organic compounds. Conversion of organic sulfur compound into the sulfides is done by the microbial action. These sulfides on oxidation gives sulfur, and similarly sulfur on reduction gives sulfates. So sulfur even on oxidation turns into the sulfate ion. Sulfate ions, so they undergo immobilization and turns into the organic sulfur, and this organic sulfur on oxidation gives sulfate ions. So the sulfides on oxidation gives sulfates, sulfates on reduction gives the sulfides, that is called dissimilatory action. This is a slide that shows about the sulfur cycle, whatever so far we have discussed about the sulfur cycle. Here also I have shown about the sulfur cycle, so how it turns into the sulfate to H2S and so on. The steps in sulfur transformation. There are 3 steps in the sulfur transformation, that is mineralization, next is immobilization, and third one oxidation. And the reduction of sulfate is also done. Sulfates on reduction gives sulfides. Sulfur is an essential element for all living organisms. Sulfur is in the organic form the sulfur containing amino acids, that is cysteine, methionine, proteins, polypeptides, biotin, so etc. These are all the metabolized by soil microorganisms to make it available as around 75 to 90%. Inorganic form is sulfur, sulfates, sulfides, thiosulfates, and even sulfides. These are about 10 to 15%. The students go through the biological aspects and try to learn about the biological properties of the soil. Thank you.